The courtroom in Franklin County, Ohio, carried a weight that pressed against the chest. It wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was worse than that, tight, controlled, full of restrained judgment. The kind of silence where every cough sounded like a confession and every shuffle of paper felt like an interruption to fate itself. Sunlight filtered through tall, narrow windows, slicing across polished wooden benches and stopping just short of the witness stand. 12 jurors sat stiffly, hands folded, eyes fixed forward. Most of them had already made up their minds. The case had been painted clearly for them, clean, procedural, tragic, but simple. A police K-9 unit had made a fatal mistake during a late-night arrest. An innocent man was dead. The dog was dangerous. End of story. At the center of the room stood Rex. The German shepherd sat beside the witness stand, his black and tan coat groomed to regulation perfection, his posture disciplined, his movements restrained. To the untrained eye, he looked calm. To anyone who knew working dogs, he looked coiled, alert, aware, watching everything without seeming to watch at all. Officer Daniel Harris stood beside him, fingers curled tightly around the leash. He had worn the same uniform for 14 years, but today it felt heavier than body armor. He could feel Rex's breathing through the leash, steady but deep, like something held back rather than relaxed. Rex had already testified. Body camera footage had been shown. Training certifications entered into evidence. Expert witnesses had explained bite force, threat assessment, and canine reaction times. The prosecution had used words like unnecessary, excessive, failure in control. The defense had countered with policy manuals and slow-motion footage, arguing Rex acted exactly as trained. But none of it had changed the mood. This wasn't about facts anymore. It was about fear. The bailiff cleared his throat. The court calls its final witness. A quiet murmur rippled through the benches. Final witness. The attorneys exchanged brief, confused glances. No one had mentioned another witness. Then the side door opened. She was small, so small she looked misplaced, like a wrong puzzle piece dropped into an adult world. Her shoes lit up blue and pink as she stepped onto the courtroom floor, the lights flashing with each careful step. The sound of them, tiny electronic chirps, felt almost obscene in such a serious room. The little girl clutched a worn pink stuffed rabbit. One ear dangled by a few loose threads, the fabric dulled by time and too many washes. Her hair was tied into uneven pigtails, strands escaping and sticking to her cheeks. "Who brought a child?" someone whispered sharply. "That's her," another voice murmured. "The kid from the scene. 3 years old." Her name was Lily Carter. She walked beside her grandmother, who looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. The woman's grip was firm but trembling, as if she feared the room itself might swallow the child whole. Lily didn't look around like most children would. She didn't stare at the ceiling or point at the flags or ask questions in a loud whisper. Her eyes were fixed on one thing, and one thing only. Rex. The moment she saw him, her step slowed. The blinking lights on her shoes stopped flashing as her feet stilled. Her grip tightened around the rabbit. Rex noticed. His ears twitched, his head lifted slightly, his gaze locked onto hers. Officer Harris felt it immediately, the change in tension traveling straight through the leash into his hand. Rex wasn't aggressive. He wasn't alerting. He was focused, in a way Harris had only felt a few times before, usually before something important. The judge frowned. "Counsel," he asked quietly. The defense attorney stood. "Your Honor, the child was present during the incident, we believe." "She's 3, the prosecutor snapped. "This is inappropriate." "I won't allow testimony," the judge said slowly, "but I will allow her presence, briefly." Lily slipped her hand free. Before anyone could react, she stepped away from her grandmother and began walking, straight toward the witness stand. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. "Lily," her grandmother whispered urgently. A deputy moved forward, unsure whether to stop her. The judge opened his mouth to intervene. Then Rex stood. Not abruptly, not aggressively, just stood. The room froze. Police dogs didn't break posture in court. They didn't move unless commanded. Every officer in the room went rigid, instincts flaring. Officer Harris whispered, "Rex, sit." Rex didn't. Lily stopped a few feet away from him. She looked up, her face calm in a way that made several adults deeply uncomfortable. Children weren't supposed to look like that in places like this. Not serious, not steady, not unafraid. She raised her small hand. Her finger pointed directly at Rex. The courtroom held its breath. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper, soft and uneven, the way children speak when they aren't sure if they're allowed to. "You're here," she said. Rex made a sound no one expected. A low whine escaped his throat, quiet but unmistakable. Officer Harris felt his stomach drop. Dogs like Rex didn't whine in public, not trained ones, not in court, not ever. The judge leaned forward. What did she say? No one answered. Lily took one more step closer. The bailiff hesitated, then stopped moving altogether. Something about the moment felt wrong to interrupt. Lily tilted her head, studying Rex the way she might study a friend she hadn't seen in a long time. "You followed me," she whispered. Rex's chest rose sharply, his tail lowered, stiff, trembling once. The prosecutor stood abruptly. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular." But the judge didn't hear him. He was watching the dog. Because Rex, highly trained, controlled, disciplined, was shaking. Just slightly, enough to notice. Enough to know something was happening that no one had planned for. Lily hugged her rabbit to her chest. "Don't be sad," she said softly. "You did good." A murmur swept the courtroom, confusion turning into unease. Officer Harris's throat went dry. Because Lily wasn't supposed to know that. And because Rex, who had faced armed suspects without flinching, lowered his head in response, as if he understood every word. The judge's voice was low now, careful. "Sweetheart, how do you know him?" Lily didn't answer right away. She looked up at the bench, then back at Rex. And then she said the words that made the courtroom realize this trial was no longer about procedure, policy, or law. "I met him when my mommy stopped breathing." Rex whimpered. And the silence that followed was heavier than anything that had come before, because whatever Lily remembered next was about to change everything. The courtroom went still, heavier than before. The hum of the overhead lights seemed deafening. Every adult present, judges, attorneys, jurors, police officers, reporters, leaned forward, unconsciously drawn to the small, unwavering presence of Lily Carter. The 3-year-old girl didn't look anywhere but at Rex. Her pink rabbit pressed against her chest, its missing ear flopping over, gave her a softness that contrasted sharply with the intensity of her gaze. Officer Harris felt the leash tighten in his hand. Rex's muscles were taut, almost vibrating, yet he didn't move aggressively. He didn't bark. He didn't lunge. He simply watched her, like he understood. The judge cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. "Sweetheart, could you tell the court what you mean?" Lily tilted her head slightly, her lips pursed in concentration, as if forming words was as heavy as solving a riddle. Then she spoke, slow, deliberate, every word weighted beyond her years. You cry." A ripple of shock went through the courtroom. The prosecutor blinked, mouth slightly open. He what? Rex's whine was low, mournful, almost human. It wasn't a sound of anger. It wasn't a sound of aggression. It was grief. Officer Harris swallowed hard, a cold shiver crawling up his spine. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just unusual. This was impossible. Lily pressed forward another step, ignoring the murmurs, the gavel, and her grandmother's quiet gasp. Her eyes never left Rex. "You tried to help my mommy," she said softly, almost whispering, but the courtroom went quiet enough that everyone heard. A collective intake of breath rose like a wave. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "How would you know that, little one?" "I saw," Lily said plainly, "under the table." Her mother's eyes widened. Emma Carter had been silent through the proceedings, tears brimming, knuckles white around her notebook. She remembered that night like a movie she'd never wanted to replay. The shouting outside her apartment, the masked man pushing through her door, the sound of her own screams, and the sudden, powerful presence of Rex lunging at the intruder. She remembered ducking under the table with Lily. She remembered feeling the dog's hot breath and strength as he pushed the man away, keeping them safe. But she had never imagined anyone else could know. The prosecutor stood abruptly, straightening his tie. "Objection, Your Honor. A 3-year-old cannot provide reliable testimony. This is speculation, not evidence." The judge raised a hand, silencing him. His eyes were fixed on Lily, his voice calm but firm. "Let her finish." Lily's small fingers curled tighter around her rabbit. She took a deep breath, unshakable, resolute, almost defiant. He didn't bite bad man. He pulled him." The courtroom froze. No one, no officer, attorney, or juror, had reported that detail. The dashcam footage never captured what Rex had done under the table, shielding the two Carters from harm. Officer Harris's face went pale. His years of experience hadn't prepared him for this. Rex let out a low growl, not threatening, not defensive, but a deep, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate through the polished courtroom floor. The hairs along his back bristled slightly. He wasn't acting like a trained dog. He was responding emotionally. The judge's voice softened. "Sweetheart, you were under the table." Lily nodded, lifting her chin, her pigtails bobbed. "Mommy told me be quiet, don't move." "Rex," he looked at me. He knew I was scared. He didn't leave. The jurors exchanged glances, uncertain, some leaning forward, gripping the edge of the benches as if they could pull the truth closer. Rex's eyes never left Lily. His tail twitched once, a slow, hesitant movement. Then he sank to the floor on his haunches, a deep, deliberate sit that drew gasps from multiple spectators. Officer Harris knelt slightly to try to regain control, whispering commands in a voice that shook. "Heel, Rex, heel." The dog did not obey. All at once, the courtroom realized the tension wasn't just in the air, it was in Rex himself. The dog was responding to something no human present fully understood. "Your Honor," the defense attorney said, voice tight, "the child, she might have witnessed more than anyone knew." The prosecutor's face turned pale. "This is preposterous. A child's imagination cannot override police procedure." Lily ignored both adults. She lifted her rabbit and whispered to Rex, "Mommy's scared no more. You saved us." The room was silent. Even the photographers had stopped clicking, sensing the gravity of the moment. The judge's pen hovered over the bench notes. He cleared his throat and said slowly, "Let the record show the witness has addressed the dog directly." Gasps, murmurs, shuffling of papers. The weight of centuries of courtroom procedure seemed to shift under the tiny frame of a 3-year-old girl. And then she spoke again, her voice carrying a strange authority for her age. "He knows who did it." The words cut through the room like a knife. Rex lifted his head, his ears pricked forward. The whine returned, louder, sharper, filled with warning. Officer Harris's hand tightened on the leash until his knuckles whitened. Something had been set in motion, a truth no one in that courtroom had expected. The suspect, seated at the defense table, shifted uncomfortably. He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. The dog's stare bored into him. It was as if Rex could see past all lies and into the very core of his guilt. Lily stepped closer. Her shoes blinked once, twice, and then she whispered again. "You hurt my mommy. You lie, Rex knows." A bead of sweat rolled down the man's temple. The courtroom collectively leaned in, sensing the moment wasn't just testimony. It was revelation. And the trial that had seemed ordinary moments ago had just turned into something far more dangerous. Because a 3-year-old had spoken, and a police dog had listened. Everyone in that room would remember this moment forever. And Lily wasn't done speaking. The next words would change everything. The courtroom had gone quiet in a way that made even the ticking of the overhead clock seem deafening. The jurors leaned forward instinctively, notebooks forgotten in their laps. Reporters froze mid-scribble, lenses still trained on the small girl and the massive dog beside her. Everyone waited, half in disbelief, half in fear, because Lily Carter, barely 3 years old, was revealing details no adult could have known. Her tiny voice trembled, but every word cut like a knife. "I saw him under the table," she said again, repeating the detail that had stunned the room. A shiver ran through the jury, the staff, even the seasoned officers present. That night the dashcam footage had shown chaos. The suspect, masked, desperate, threatening, had charged the apartment with lethal intent. Emma Carter, Lily's mother, had been trapped at the kitchen table. And Rex, he had lunged, blocked, pulled, and protected. None of that had been captured in the footage the courtroom had already seen. Now, Lily's memory was peeling back layers no adult could see. "You hid," the judge said gently, voice soft, coaxing. "You were under the table, and Rex." "He looked at me," Lily replied, her tone calm but unshakably certain. "He knew." Officer Harris tightened his grip on the leash, trying to maintain composure. The dog's gaze was fixed, unwavering. His tail twitched, a subtle signal of heightened alertness. Every muscle in Rex's body was ready to react, but not out of fear or training, something deeper, primal, and inexplicable. The defense attorney leaned forward, whispering urgently, almost to himself. "Your Honor, the child's account corroborates actions that weren't officially documented. Under the table, that's never been on record." The prosecutor's face tightened. "This is absurd. We cannot rely on the account of a toddler to override verified evidence." The judge didn't respond immediately. He was watching Rex. Rex growled low in his throat, not the threatening growl of attack, but the guttural warning that something was wrong. The sound reverberated subtly through the polished wood of the courtroom floor. Jurors exchanged uneasy glances. This was no ordinary day in court. No ordinary case. Lily tilted her head. "He pulled the man," she added, holding her rabbit tighter. "Mommy was scared, I was scared. Rex, he saved us." The words were simple. They carried no flourish, no dramatics. And yet in that courtroom they carried everything. Her mother, Emma Carter, had been quiet, silent, holding herself together for her daughter, but now her eyes brimmed with tears. Memories of that night crashed back in, vivid and unrelenting. The shouting, the door smashing open, the masked intruder, the helpless grip on Lily's tiny hand. And then Rex, a blur of brown and black, teeth bared, muscles taut, lunging between them and the threat. And now a courtroom full of strangers was hearing Lily articulate it all. The suspect, seated at the defense table, shifted uneasily, unaware that every eye was on him now in a different way. He hadn't anticipated a child, especially not Lily, to piece together the truth. Her words carried a clarity that exposed the unseen, the details that no official report had included. Lily stepped closer to Rex. Her shoes blinked once, twice, small lights that had been playful before but now seemed almost like signal flares. She whispered, "He didn't bite him, he pulled him." The courtroom erupted with murmurs and audible gasps. Officer Harris's hand tightened again, knuckles whitening. Rex, trained for obedience, stayed by the child's side but didn't sit. He was alert, breathing heavier than usual, responding not to commands but to the energy in the room. The judge banged the gavel, bringing silence. "Order," he said, but his voice carried awe. The defense attorney leaned toward the bench. "Your Honor, we've never had evidence of this. She's describing actions that are critical to the incident. Critical." The prosecutor's jaw tightened. "This is a child. This is highly irregular. This has no bearing." But the jurors were already leaning in, caught in the pull of something beyond argument or procedure. Lily's small body, her unwavering gaze, the dog's tense presence, it had become more than a trial. It was revelation in real time. Rex shifted slightly, still standing, and let out a small, soft whine. The sound carried across the courtroom, touching everyone in a way words could not. Officer Harris felt it vibrate through the leash into his hand, sending chills down his spine. The dog was not responding to anyone but Lily. Not to commands, not to the room, only to her. "Rex," Lily whispered, kneeling slightly, you know who hurt Mommy." Every head turned toward the suspect, his face drained of color. He hadn't anticipated this. No child, no witness, no dog. The judge's voice was quiet but heavy with realization. "It seems, young lady, you observed what no one else did. You are brave to speak now." Lily nodded once, simple and firm. "Rex saved me." The courtroom gasped again. Cameras clicked frantically, reporters leaning in. The energy shifted completely. The case that had seemed black and white was suddenly full of shadows, hidden truths waiting to be exposed. Officer Harris whispered to the bailiff, barely audible, "I've never seen him respond like this before." The child turned slightly, her tiny finger pointing to the suspect. "He lied," she said. "Rex knows." A bead of sweat rolled down the man's temple. The audience held its collective breath. The entire courtroom seemed to shrink to the space between the child and the dog. Rex growled low in response, the sound vibrating through the polished floorboards like a warning bell. His eyes fixed on the suspect, unblinking, unwavering. Every juror felt it, a cold certainty that no one present could deny. The judge's gavel struck again, once, twice. "Bailiff," he said, voice firm, "ensure the witness is safe." The bailiff nodded, glancing nervously at the small figure of Lily Carter, who now seemed to tower over the room with the weight of what she had revealed. "She knows," someone whispered near the back. "The dog, he knows." And in that moment, Officer Harris realized the trial was no longer about procedure or protocol. It was about truth, brutal, undeniable truth. Lily's final words before stepping back to her grandmother were quiet, almost lost beneath the whispers. "Rex will tell them." The room froze, because no one knew exactly what she meant. But everyone understood that what happened next, what Rex would do, would change the course of the trial forever. And the courtroom was about to witness it. The courtroom had never been so tense. Every eye was glued to the small figure of Lily Carter and the massive German Shepherd at the witness stand. Even the seasoned officers, accustomed to chaos, whispered to one another nervously. Something intangible had shifted. The air itself seemed heavier, charged with anticipation and fear. Rex shifted, muscles rippling beneath his sleek coat. Officer Harris's fingers tightened around the leash, knuckles white, a knot of anxiety tightening his chest. "Rex, heel," he commanded, his voice firm but strained. The dog didn't move. The courtroom froze. Jurors exchanged uneasy glances. A small 3-year-old child and a police dog had somehow rewritten the rules of the room. Reporters leaned forward, pens poised over notepads, capturing every fleeting detail. The judge leaned back slightly in his chair, brows furrowed, feeling an instinct he hadn't felt in decades. Something was about to happen that couldn't be controlled. Lily, her rabbit clutched to her chest, tilted her head. "He's scared," she said softly, pointing toward the defendant. The suspect at the defense table shifted uncomfortably, sweat dampening his hairline. His lawyer whispered urgently, "Don't, just stay calm." But calm was impossible now. Rex's ears pricked, tail stiff, eyes locked on the man. The low growl that had been threateningly soft moments ago deepened, vibrating through the polished wood floor, shaking the room without sound. The jurors recoiled slightly, instinctively leaning back in their seats. Officer Harris's hand trembled slightly as he whispered to the dog, "Rex, heel, stay." The dog ignored him. The judge's gavel hit the desk sharply. "Order!" His voice shook, not with fear but disbelief. "Control your animal." Rex didn't respond. His chest rose and fell rapidly, and his stance shifted, pulling against the leash with subtle strength. It was the controlled power of a predator and protector at once. Lily's eyes narrowed. "You lied," she said to the man, her tone unmistakable. "You hurt Mommy, you're afraid." The suspect's hand trembled on the table. He could feel it now, the silent accusation that had nothing to do with law or evidence. It was raw, primal judgment. The dog knew. Lily knew. And suddenly all the rehearsed statements, the objections, the defenses, seemed fragile. Rex took a single step forward, pulling slightly against the leash. "Rex," Officer Harris shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Heel, sit." The dog ignored him again. Another step. Then another. The courtroom gasped collectively. Chairs shifted. The suspect's eyes darted around the room, realizing he was not just facing judgment from humans but from a creature trained to sense fear, deceit, and danger. "You can't lie to him," Lily whispered almost mournfully, yet with certainty that made everyone shiver. The suspect's hands curled into fists. He tried to compose himself, but the air was thick with the weight of unspoken truth. Rex, enormous and unwavering, stopped just short of the defense table. The growl, low and deep, rumbled in the dog's chest, vibrating like thunder. The judge's voice shook. "Bailiffs, ensure the safety of the child." The bailiffs moved in, but Lily didn't flinch. She stood her ground, staring at Rex and the man with a clarity that made everyone in the room step back, almost instinctively. Then, as if on command from some unseen authority, Rex lunged, not viciously, not aggressively, but with undeniable precision. The dog barreled toward the suspect's chair, pulling against the leash, his body tense like a spring coiled to snap. The man bolted from the chair, shoving papers and folders into the air. A cry of panic erupted. A bailiff lunged. The suspect tried to flee, but the courtroom doors had been secured. Rex was on him in a heartbeat, teeth bared, but not attacking, blocking, guiding, warning. Every instinct in the room screamed that this was no longer a trial. It was a confrontation, orchestrated by the bond between child and dog. "He's got a gun," someone shouted from the back. A metallic clatter echoed across the courtroom as a small handgun hit the polished floor. A hush fell again, heavier than before. The officers moved in, restraining the man, securing the weapon. The media cameras clicked frantically, capturing every motion, every strained face. Through it all, Lily stepped forward. Her voice was small, almost too quiet to carry, but it cut across the chaos. "He tried to hurt us." Rex lowered his head slightly, tail stiff, eyes still locked on the suspect. It was over momentarily, but the tension remained. Officer Harris looked down at his dog, feeling both awe and fear. "You were trained for this," he whispered, voice shaking. "But you chose differently." The judge, finally regaining control of the courtroom, slammed the gavel again. "Order! Bailiff, remove the suspect. Immediately." As deputies escorted the man out, sweat gleaming on his forehead, Lily's gaze stayed fixed on Rex. "He's still sad," she whispered to no one in particular, her voice trembling. Officer Harris glanced at her, astonished. "Sad?" "Yes," she said, holding the rabbit closer. "Because Mommy, she's gone, and he remembers." Rex let out another low whine, softer this time, almost mournful. The room went silent again. Every adult in the courtroom understood, without speaking, that this dog's loyalty was more than training. It was memory. It was grief. It was love. The media captured the moment, unaware of its full depth. Jurors watched, captivated, unsure how to process the display of instinct, intelligence, and emotion. And as the bailiff led the suspect away, a single thought settled in the minds of everyone present. The truth was no longer just in evidence or testimony. It was in a small child and a police dog who understood it all. And what Lily would say next, about what Rex truly remembered that night would shock the courtroom entirely. By late afternoon, the courthouse buzzed like a storm trapped in a bottle. Cameras, reporters, officers, and attorneys swirled around the halls, voices overlapping, punctuated by clicking cameras and the occasional sharp gavel. But inside the courtroom, where Lily still clutched her rabbit, the tension had shifted. What had started as a standard trial had become something far more dangerous, far more real. The suspect, now under heavy guard, sat handcuffed, pale and trembling. He no longer carried the bravado of a man confident in his lies. Every juror could see it, every flinch, every twitch of a hand, every bead of sweat sliding down his temple. He had known a child and a dog could expose him. He had known the truth was finally ready to speak. Detective Ramirez stepped forward from the back of the courtroom, holding a small evidence folder. His voice carried across the polished wood floors, calm but authoritative. "Your Honor, following the child's testimony and the dog's behavior, we re-interviewed the suspect. He has confessed to shooting Emma Carter during the home invasion, lying about the incident, and attempting to cover his tracks." The room went silent. The weight of his words hung over the courtroom, thick and suffocating. Reporters jostled for position, pens paused mid-scribble. Jurors blinked, their hands gripping their notebooks. A few jurors whispered to one another. The defense attorney's jaw tightened so hard it looked painful. Emma Carter's mother, sitting in the front row, sank lower into her chair, unable to cry. Her lips trembled but no sound escaped. Lily, perched on her grandmother's lap, hugged her rabbit tightly, her eyes never leaving Rex. "Your Honor," the detective continued, "the suspect admitted planting evidence to frame the dog, attempting to mislead the investigation. He admitted to using the firearm that killed Emma Carter, and ballistics confirmed the match." The judge's hands trembled slightly as he leaned over his desk. "This changes everything. The jury must consider this confession in the context of the child's testimony and the dog's behavior." Rex sat beside the stand, chest rising and falling with tense control. The dog's eyes were fixed on the suspect, unwavering. His jaw shifted slightly, almost as if he were aware that the man would face consequences soon. Lily reached forward instinctively, brushing her small hand against Rex's paw. "You did good," she whispered, voice quiet but steady. "You saved us." A wave of emotion swept through the courtroom. Officers fought back tears. Jurors blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. Even the defense attorney, a man trained to control his reactions, exhaled shakily through his nose. Outside, the press swarmed the building. The courthouse doors opened to a flurry of cameras and reporters, each capturing the narrative unfolding inside. A toddler and a police dog had unraveled a lie that had gone unnoticed for months. The story was headline material, impossible to ignore. Child and police dog expose murderer. Yet despite the public spectacle, Lily's mind was elsewhere. That night after the courthouse had emptied and Rex had returned to his kennel, she couldn't sleep. She sat in her small bed, the rabbit clutched tightly against her chest, eyes wide and tearful. She remembered everything: the shouting, the gunshot, the masked man, the feeling of Rex's warm breath against her cheek as he blocked the threat. Her grandmother hovered in the doorway. "Lily, what's wrong, baby?" "He promised to come back," Lily whispered, voice barely audible. "Rex, he said goodbye, but he promised to come back." Across town, Rex paced his kennel restlessly, whining softly, tail flicking in agitation. Officer Harris knelt beside him, hand on his broad head. "It's over, boy," he murmured. "He's in custody. You're safe now." But Rex didn't respond. He whined again, quieter this time, almost mournful. His trained instincts were telling him something no one could see. The case wasn't just over. The bond between him and Lily ran deeper than training. He had protected her. He had saved her life. And now he needed her as much as she had needed him. An hour later, Officer Harris made a call he wasn't authorized to make. He stepped into the kennel, and Lily, accompanied by her grandmother, appeared at the gate. She hesitated for only a moment before stepping closer to Rex. The dog froze. Then cautiously he pressed his massive head against the bars, his eyes softening but still alert. Lily reached through, patting his head, her small fingers tracing the ridge of his muzzle. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You saved me." Rex nuzzled her hand once. Then he stepped back, circling slightly, never breaking eye contact. He lowered himself to sit beside her, tail wagging slowly, a mix of pride, relief, and lingering grief. Lily's voice broke as she hugged the rabbit tighter. "I love you, Rex. You're the best friend I've ever had." Officer Harris stood behind her, silently observing, overwhelmed by the bond between the child and his dog. Years of training, months of service, countless missions, all of it culminated in this moment of raw, unfiltered connection. Rex let out a final, low whine, resting his head on his paws. His work wasn't finished, not entirely. But for now, justice had been served, and the smallest witness had revealed the truth no one else could. Yet Lily's words that night hinted at something deeper, an unspoken understanding between child and dog that the public could never see. "He says goodbye tomorrow," she whispered into the quiet, her voice trembling. No one in the room understood what she meant, not Officer Harris, not her grandmother, not even the officers who had witnessed the chaos. But it was true, because Rex's retirement was scheduled for the following day. And the bond between a child and a dog, once tested in the fires of fear, was about to face its most emotional moment yet. The night ended in silence, but tension hung like a shadow. Outside, the city lights flickered. Inside, a child and a dog slept fitfully, each dreaming in their own way of a night that had changed everything. The next day, the world would watch. And nothing would be the same. The morning sunlight spilled over Franklin County like molten gold, illuminating the courthouse steps where a small crowd had gathered. Flags fluttered in the crisp air. Reporters jostled for position, cameras poised, microphones ready. Today was not just any day, it was Rex's retirement. Years of service, hundreds of missions, uncountable lives saved, and countless threats faced. Today, the bravest dog in the force would walk away from duty for the last time. Inside the courthouse, the courtroom itself had been transformed into a ceremonial space. Chairs lined the aisles, a podium stood ready, and a single photograph of Emma Carter adorned the witness stand, her smiling face a quiet tribute to the woman Rex had saved. Jurors from the trial months earlier had been invited to witness the ceremony, along with police officers, detectives, and a few carefully chosen media members. But the center of attention was already waiting at the front: Rex. The German shepherd sat tall, coat gleaming in the light filtering through the windows. His eyes scanned the room, alert, patient, commanding respect without even moving. Beside him stood Officer Harris, hand resting gently on the leash, the two of them silent, an unspoken bond radiating from their connection. Lily Carter entered with her grandmother, dressed neatly in a pale pink dress. Her tiny shoes clicked softly against the floor. She clutched her rabbit tightly, the one that had been with her through every moment of terror, every courtroom revelation. Her eyes went immediately to Rex. The dog's ears twitched, recognizing her instantly. The room went quiet as she approached. She knelt beside Rex, barely reaching his shoulder. "For the dreams," she whispered, placing her rabbit gently at his paws. The dog lowered his head, nose brushing lightly against the worn plush toy. The judge, who had presided over the case, stepped forward to speak. His voice carried a weight that silenced the murmurs in the room. "Today, we honor a K-9 officer whose bravery has saved lives, exposed truth, and protected the innocent. Rex's work is a testament not just to training, but to loyalty, intelligence, and courage." As the words were spoken, Rex let out a soft whine, almost imperceptible but full of emotion. Lily reached up, stroking his head carefully. "You're the best, Rex," she whispered. "I love you." Officer Harris swallowed hard. "Good boy, Rex," he murmured, voice thick. Then came the part that no one was fully prepared for. Rex's breathing quickened, his tail stiffened, and suddenly the years of control, discipline, and training seemed to loosen. The dog stepped forward slightly, circling Lily protectively, pressing his body against hers. The audience collectively held its breath. This was more than ceremony. This was farewell. Lily's small hand went to his neck. "Don't go too far," she said softly. "Stay with me." The handler's voice trembled. "Rex, sit, stay." Rex ignored him. The room grew tense. Officers shifted nervously. The judge's hand trembled slightly as he gripped the podium. The entire ceremony had transformed into a raw display of emotion that no one anticipated. The dog, trained for obedience, for mission, for danger, had chosen loyalty over protocol. Lily knelt beside him, brushing her fingers through his fur. Tears streamed down her cheeks, glistening in the morning sunlight. "You saved us," she whispered, "and now I'll never forget you." Rex rested his massive head against her shoulder, eyes closing briefly. His breathing slowed but remained uneven. The sheer force of his presence, protective, alert, loving, filled the room. Every adult in attendance felt it. Every officer, juror, and reporter realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. The bond between child and dog, forged in fear and loyalty, now unbreakable. Then it happened. Rex shifted suddenly, as though sensing the weight of the day, the finality of his service. His front legs buckled slightly, and he collapsed gently onto the floor. The crowd gasped. Medics rushed forward instinctively, but Lily did not flinch. She pressed her small face to his massive head. "Thank you," she whispered. The dog's eyes, heavy with age and years of service, met hers one last time. Then he exhaled slowly, a long, deep breath that seemed to release decades of tension, fear, and memory. The room was silent except for the faint whine escaping his muzzle. Officer Harris knelt beside him, hand trembling as he rested it on Rex's flank. "It's okay, boy," he said softly. "It's finally okay." Outside, the reporters and cameras captured the scene, but inside, it was something else entirely. No words could describe the bond, the emotion, the unspoken gratitude between the child and the dog. Lily whispered again, voice barely audible. "You kept your promise, Rex. You saved me. I'll never forget." Rex pressed his nose against her hand, eyes closing fully now. The crowd was still, witnessing a quiet, powerful farewell that transcended medals, commendations, and applause. For a moment the past and present collided. The night of terror, the courtroom revelations, the years of service, all of it concentrated in this one fragile, beautiful moment. Then the judge spoke softly, almost reverently. "Let the record show that Officer Rex has retired from service, having fulfilled every duty, saved every life he could, and stood by the innocent in the face of danger. May he be honored for all time." The room erupted in applause, but Lily didn't notice. She was focused entirely on Rex, stroking his fur, whispering to him, her tiny hand shaking with the effort of holding back sobs. Rex let out a soft, final whine, resting his head on her lap. And Lily, for the first time in weeks, smiled through her tears. "Goodbye, Rex," she said softly. He looked up at her one last time, eyes deep with understanding. Then he exhaled and closed them. For Lily, for Officer Harris, and for everyone in the courtroom, it was a moment of profound loss, yes, but also a moment of unimaginable love and loyalty. Outside, the crowd lingered, sensing the weight of the moment. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the press seemed to understand that some things were too sacred to capture in words or images. And inside, Lily whispered again, to herself this time, "I'll see you in my dreams, Rex, I promise." Rex had retired from service, but in every heart that witnessed his loyalty, courage, and love, he would live forever. And in Lily's heart he already had. Weeks had passed since Rex's retirement, but the courthouse still seemed to carry the weight of that day. The trial had concluded, the suspect convicted, and the news headlines had faded from television screens. But for Lily Carter, the world was quieter now, punctuated only by the soft sounds of memory and the occasional echo of Rex's whines in her mind. The judge, who had witnessed the chaos of the courtroom months before, had invited Lily back for a private hearing. It was not about law or procedure. It was about understanding, closure, and recognition. His chambers were warm, the lights soft, a stark contrast to the tension of the trial room. The walls, lined with books and plaques, seemed to shrink in the presence of the small girl who carried a depth of experience no 3-year-old should ever know. Lily walked in, holding her pink rabbit tightly. Her grandmother followed silently, offering the quiet reassurance of someone who had weathered storms far too large for a child. Rex, now retired, was not there physically, but his absence was palpable, a ghost of protection that seemed to fill the room. "Hello, Lily," the judge said gently, leaning back in his chair. His eyes, kind but serious, regarded her. "I wanted to speak with you about Rex, about everything that happened." Lily nodded solemnly. "I miss him," she whispered, voice small but steady. The judge leaned forward, resting his hands on his desk. "I understand. You've been through a lot. What I want to know, why do you think Rex listened to you that day? Why did he act the way he did in court?" Lily paused, thinking carefully. Her small brows furrowed as if considering the weight of the answer. She clutched her rabbit to her chest, tracing its missing ear with her thumb. "Because," she said finally, her voice soft but clear, "he didn't see me little, he saw me scared." The judge blinked, struck by the simplicity and truth of it. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Scared, yes, but that's it." Lily shook her head. "No, he knew I needed him, and I knew he needed me too. He remembered Mommy. That night he was brave for both of us." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The judge's gaze softened. Years of courtroom experience, of hearing testimonies, never prepared him for something like this. A 3-year-old expressing loyalty, empathy, and an understanding of courage that surpassed adults' comprehension. She hugged her rabbit tightly, staring at the desk. "I think he was sad because Mommy's gone, but he stayed. He never left. And I needed him too, so he stayed. And I talked to him, told him it was okay." The judge felt a lump in his throat. He had presided over thousands of cases, but nothing had hit him like this. The child's words weren't just testimony. They were truth, emotional truth, a reminder that bravery, love, and loyalty weren't confined to human hearts. "Do you think," he asked carefully, "that Rex understood what you were saying?" Lily nodded emphatically. "Yes, he knew everything, about the bad man, about Mommy, about me. He listened, and he didn't leave." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the faint ticking of the judge's desk clock. The words of a tiny girl had silenced a man who had spent decades commanding the law and controlling chaos. Finally, the judge spoke. "Lily, you've taught me something I didn't know I needed to learn. That courage doesn't just come from weapons or strategy or authority. It comes from heart, from loyalty, from love, and sometimes it comes from the smallest voices." Lily tilted her head, eyes shining. "Rex, he's the bravest, bigger than anyone in the courthouse. He saved Mommy. He saved me. He saved everyone scared in that room." The judge nodded solemnly. He leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. "And you were brave too, Lily. Braver than most adults could ever be." A soft smile crept across her face. It was fleeting, but it carried weight, warmth, and recognition. She looked down at her rabbit, whispering softly, "We did it, together." The judge's eyes lingered on her. Do you think he knew his work was finished?" Lily's small shoulders rose in a slight shrug. "Maybe, but he's still with me, in dreams, in my heart. He said goodbye, but he promised to come back." Her words echoed the night of his retirement. The promise was unspoken, yet unbreakable, a bond forged in fear, protection, and love. The judge swallowed hard, realizing that justice in this case had not been measured by law alone. It had been measured in courage, loyalty, and the quiet strength of a child and a dog who had seen the truth and acted on it. Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide and certain. He listens to me, and I listen to him. That's how we know everything will be okay. The judge's chest tightened. He knew there were no court forms, no official transcripts, no legal precedent for what this child had accomplished. And yet he understood more than any law book could teach him. Some truths could not be denied. They had to be felt, lived, and remembered. He smiled softly, trying to hide the lump forming in his throat. "Thank you, Lily, for speaking, for trusting, for teaching us all something important about bravery, about love, about truth." She nodded, clutching her rabbit to her chest. "You'll remember him too, right, Rex?" The judge's eyes glistened. "Always, I'll remember him forever." For the first time in months, Lily smiled fully. The kind of smile that wasn't just survival, but joy, relief, and understanding. She hugged her rabbit tighter. "Me too," she whispered. And in that quiet chamber, filled with sunlight and the remnants of courtroom tension, a small girl taught a judge, a city, and the world a lesson no trial could capture. The bravest hearts don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they come on four paws, with eyes that understand more than words ever could. And sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the greatest truth. Months had passed since the trial, since the retirement ceremony, and yet the echoes of that courtroom still resonated in Franklin County. Newspapers had carried the story, television segments had replayed the footage, but for Lily Carter, the story had never ended. Every day was a reminder of the bond she had shared with Rex, the German shepherd who had saved her life, exposed a killer, and forever changed a courtroom. The morning was crisp and clear as the community gathered in the small public park where a bronze statue of Rex had been commissioned. The base bore an inscription, "In memory of Rex, K-9 officer, protector, and friend." Children and adults alike had come, reporters in the back capturing the moment for what would become a viral story once more. But no one's attention was on the cameras. Everyone was focused on Lily. She wore her pale pink dress again, the same one she had worn in the courtroom months ago. Her small shoes clicked against the pavement as she approached the statue, rabbit in hand. She stopped at its base, eyes wide and shining, gazing at the sculpted German shepherd frozen mid-alert, head turned protectively, ears pricked, chest out. It was Rex, but immortalized in bronze, forever vigilant, forever brave. Her grandmother knelt beside her. "Do you want to say something?" she asked softly. Lily nodded, her lips trembling but determined. "I want to tell everyone Rex saved me. He saved Mommy. He saved people no one knew were in danger. He listened. He understood, and he never left my side." The crowd grew quiet, caught up in the sincerity of her words. Even the reporters stopped clicking, leaning in, captivated by the tiny voice that had already changed so many lives. She continued, her small voice growing stronger. "Sometimes heroes aren't people. Sometimes heroes are dogs. And sometimes heroes are friends who don't leave you when you're scared." Officer Harris stood a few feet behind her, chest tight. He swallowed hard as he watched Lily speak. His own eyes stung. He had served with Rex for years, but he had never seen anything like the bond between dog and child, a connection forged in fear and forged into courage. He remembered the courtroom, every gasp, every whine, every word Lily had spoken. And he realized now more than ever that Rex's bravery had left its mark far beyond the law. The mayor of Franklin County stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Lily, would you like to dedicate this statue?" She nodded, holding her rabbit tightly, her small hand pressed against the plaque. "I dedicate this to Rex," she said, "to every dog who protects people, and to every person who listens to the brave even if they're small. Never forget them." The mayor smiled, his eyes misting. "Thank you, Lily. That's the most important lesson we can all learn." Lily stepped back and hugged her grandmother tightly. "I wish he could see this," she whispered. Officer Harris knelt next to her, putting a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He's here," he said softly. "Right here, pressing lightly over her heart. The crowd watched as she reached up and touched the bronze muzzle of Rex's statue. Her fingers lingered on the cool metal, tracing the curve of his snout, the tension in his stance, the life captured in bronze. In that moment, it wasn't a statue. It was Rex, alive in memory, alive in spirit, and alive in the lessons he had left behind. Suddenly, a soft whine echoed from the crowd. A local K-9 officer had brought a young German shepherd to the ceremony, standing alert, ears pricked. The dog's gaze seemed to find Lily, tilting its head, echoing the way Rex had once watched over her. Lily smiled, understanding. The legacy of Rex wasn't just the statue or the headlines. It was in every dog that would protect, every child who would be safe, and every life shaped by courage and loyalty. She knelt again, hugging her rabbit and whispering, "I'll never forget you, Rex. You were the bravest, the strongest, the best friend I could ever have. Thank you for saving me." Officer Harris looked down at the girl and then at the statue. He could almost see the life in Rex's eyes, the same intelligence, the same courage that had guided them through danger. He realized then that some heroes don't wear medals, don't make speeches. They leave a mark on hearts, and that mark lasts forever. The sun shone warmly on the bronze figure, casting long shadows across the grass. Children ran in the background, laughter echoing like a soft promise. Adults wiped away tears, moved by the tiny girl who had spoken truths no one else could see, and by the dog whose actions had saved a life. Lily stood slowly, brushing her dress, her eyes lingering on the statue one last time. "Goodbye, Rex," she whispered, voice trembling but firm. "I'll see you in my dreams." A light breeze stirred, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. In that moment, it felt as if the wind itself carried the echoes of Rex's loyalty, courage, and love. The community understood that the story of Lily and Rex was more than just news. It was legend. Officer Harris knelt beside her one last time. "You've done him proud, Lily, and he's proud of you too." She smiled softly, gripping her rabbit tightly. "I know," she said, "I know he is." The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving Lily and her grandmother alone with the statue. She reached up and touched the bronze one more time, whispering softly, "Thank you for protecting me, Rex. Thank you for being my hero." The park was quiet now, save for the whispering wind and the distant hum of city life. But for Lily, for Officer Harris, and for everyone who had witnessed the story, the courage, loyalty, and love of a small girl and a police dog would never be forgotten. Because heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes they have fur. Sometimes they are small voices in a courtroom. Sometimes they are memories that last forever. And sometimes they are both. The sun set slowly over the park, bathing Rex's statue in golden light. A quiet peace settled over the scene, a final tribute to a life of courage, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a child and her dog. Lily turned to leave, rabbit in hand, glancing back one last time. In her heart, Rex was still there, watching, protecting, listening, forever brave. And that was enough.